Okay, we are going to start the next part, that is Concept and Reality book, which is compiled by Most Venerable Katukulunde Nyananda Thero, and we are going through that so that we are learning a lot from that book. And currently we are on page 26th. Let me share the screen. Today I heard someone is not available, so I am going to read the book as well. Hope you all can see the screen.
Yes, Swaminathan. Okay.
Yeah. So last time we actually started discussing how to overcome conceptual proliferation, and that is a very important aspect what we have to discuss. Path to non-proliferation. That means how one can overcome conceptual proliferation. As we all know that our minds are sometimes unnecessarily thinking, overthinking, and conceptually proliferating, and that is quite harmful and gives us a lot of stress, kind of a burden to the mind, and now we need to look at how we can overcome them. So that is what we are trying to recognize. And last time we discussed a particular sutta which is called Sakkapanya Sutta, where a discussion happened between God Sakka and the Buddha. So God Sakka is asking how one can overcome that vicious cycle, where even though all different groups, devas, that means gods, celestial beings, maybe Maras, Brahmas, human beings, they all want to live harmoniously, but there are enough quarrels. Every time there are arguments, conflicts, wars, battles going on. So what's the reason? So Buddha answered telling that basically Issa Machariya is there. So that means there's a significant amount of what we call avarice and enmity is there. So people have some desires and they want to have them, they want to keep them, they don't want to share with others. So there is certain amount of miserliness. On the other hand, if they don't have it, there could be some amount of jealousy. So as a result of that, now actually if we come into the previous situation, that means there is a peer and up-peer. So there are likable and dislikable objects. There are things that we want, there are things that we don't want. And how that has happened, so there is a desire. How that has happened, there are thinking. There is kind of a applied thought, thinking. So how the thinking has happened? Okay, that's because of Papancha Sanya Sankha. So as we discussed last time, so here in the Sakkapanya Sutta, Papancha Sanya Sankha is shown as the cause to generate thinking, to generate thoughts. So, but on the other hand, in the Madhupindika Sutta, the opposite is shown, where Vitakka is causing to generate Papancha Sanya, or simply we can say the Papancha. So it's a kind of a relationship is drawing there. So basically in the Madhupindika Sutta, it's a kind of a dynamic process. As we are using our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and the mind to deal with the outside world. So basically that promotes some amount of thinking, and that thinking ultimately can cause Papancha, conceptual proliferation. It's a kind of a dynamic process. On the other hand, here Papancha Sanya Sankha literally means that there are enough products available in the whole world which are produced by too much of thinking. As we discussed last time, say if you are buying a vehicle, so that vehicle is a product of so much of human thinking, human design, human intellect, their creativity, their findings, maybe nowadays even artificial intelligence, all that comes into being in order to create a vehicle. So that's a product that we have prepared, that we have created. Interesting thing is that product has a lot of potential to promote thinking. because that product itself was generated by too much thinking, overthinking, designing, maybe kind of fantasizing. So that is the product. So as a result of that all, the product has come, that is the vehicle. So this vehicle is now promotes thinking whenever we see it. So Papancha Sanya Sankha in that sense means all these resultant products which are capable of producing thinking, producing kind of attention, producing some sort of imagination. So that is why all the, say, advertisements are showing in a very beautiful, attractive way, so that they promotes thinking, they promotes our attention. So we are tempted to think about it. We are tempted to memorize it. We are tempted to expect it. We are tempted to use it. So that potential is there when we see a kind of an advertisement. So similarly, all the other products, assume that you are going to a supermarket and you are going to buy a soap, a bar of soap, and there are many different brands available, and each brand telling that that is the best brand, and they are having a very beautiful wrapper on it. And all information is there. And once we see that the packaging, the wrapping, it promotes thinking, it promotes kind of a desires, it promotes to purchase it. So kind of a desire to purchase it. That means thinking is somewhat highlighted, so somewhat promoted, encouraged by using all these different products. So that is what the marketing people want to do. So as we see something, then it has to be registered in our mind. It has to have a kind of place in our mind so that we may buy it in the future. Or maybe we are buying it right now. So similarly, the songs, similarly, the smells, tastes, tangibles, all that have a fair potential to promote thinking. So therefore, we find out a kind of a relationship between the vitakka and papancha, and again papancha sanya sankha and vitakka. And now we can get into another area where in the same sutta, Sakkapanya Sutta, Buddha highlighted. So in order to overcome papancha sanya sankha, so you need to have some sort of a methodology. So that methodology is basically here explained with respect to the feelings. So there are different kinds of feelings. So particularly there are 3 categories of feelings, and there are happy feelings, pleasurable feelings, or there are unhappy feelings, painful feelings, or the equanimous feelings, neutral feelings. And here Buddha mentioned, if we consider pleasurable feelings, there are pleasurable feelings, those are to be avoided, and there are pleasurable feelings, those are to be sort of associated. So what are we going to associate? What are we going to discard? So that depends on how it is affecting our mind. So if a particular kind of thought, or rather a feeling, a pleasurable feeling, when we are associating that, if it causes some amount of diminishing of our wholesome qualities. On the other hand, promotes certain desires, promotes lust, hatred, delusion, all different sorts of defilements in our mind, then Buddha say, you should not associate such kind of a pleasurable feeling. On the other hand, if there is a pleasurable feeling, when we are associating it, if it is promoting some kind of a, say, calmness, relaxation, maybe quietude in our mind, peacefulness in our mind, maybe you can use it, associate it. On the other hand, if it is reducing hatred in our mind, delusion in our mind, restlessness in our mind, so such kind of happiness probably we can associate. Say, for example, you are meditating, and while meditating, say, your mind become fairly calm, relaxed, tranquil. And it promotes some kind of a happiness, some kind of a joy in your mind. And you likes to meditate because you gain such kind of a unworldly kind of happiness, what we call it as the Niramisa Piti. So Niramisa Piti in that sense is a very interesting result that one can enjoy. And this result does not promote lust, does not promote too much any kind of a delusion. Of course, there are limitations from it, like it may not produce a lot of wisdom, but anyway, in this very life, you may have a kind of a very pleasant abiding when you are in the meditation. I am talking here particularly the tranquility meditation. So therefore, probably you can associate that, you can continue that, because your mind become peaceful by being engaged with it. On the other hand, say you are watching movies and maybe horror movies, maybe fantasies, maybe various kinds of fabrications. And that also gives a lot of satisfaction to the mind. You tend to think about it, you tend to imagine about it, you're going to have some sort of fun from it, you're laughing while enjoying it. All sorts of happiness is there. So that's why we are watching movies. But on the other hand, once you are trying back to settle your mind, it could be very difficult. All what you have seen probably come to your mind. All what you have imagined probably disturbed your calmness. And you might even see nightmares because you have been frightened by the images or whatever the scenes are shown in a particular movie. Maybe it's a horror movie. So likewise, even though we gain some certain amount of satisfaction, kind of a pleasure by using the movies, it may have a lot of consequences. So this kind of a pleasure, therefore, Buddha advocates, okay, better avoid. So don't too much associate it. If possible, discard it totally. So that's why when you are going to 8 precepts, so we discard all such kind of an entertainment. It's discarded because it's kind of making the mind fairly blurred, making the mind fairly vulnerable. And it's rather than settling the mind, it may start becoming restless. So likewise, so Buddha mentioned if there are, certain feelings which is somewhat painful. Say, for example, you are meditating, but sometimes your body aches. There are aches and pains while you are sitting. But still, you can understand, okay, even though it's a bit difficult, I am gaining certain amount of mindfulness. I am gaining certain amount of concentration. And time to time, certain insights are also happening. So that means there is a gain. There is a positive feedback, positive results coming from the practice. So even though it is a little hard, so therefore we better associate, we better continue the practice, even though the feeling that we are deriving from it at the moment is somewhat maybe a little painful. But we may have to continue because the results are pretty beneficial. So likewise, so how we are going to determine whether to associate a particular feeling or not to associate depends on its impact on our mind. Whenever we are associating particular type of feeling, if it is promoting wholesomeness in the mind, diminishes the unwholesome qualities, then we better associate that feeling. On the other hand, if we are associating a particular feeling, if unwholesomeness is promoted instead of wholesomeness, and even the wholesomeness is diminished, then we better stop associating that such kind of a feeling. So this is a criterion that Buddha is giving. And now actually Buddha get into another area using the Pottapada Sutta. So actually this is referred in the Digha Nikaya, and Venerable Jnananda Thero is now referring that in order to highlight a particular principle, what we were doing. So idang nissa idam pajahata is a one principle used by the Buddha. So you are using one state in order to overcome a relatively rough state. Suppose your mind is fairly rough, it is with a lot of defilements, with a lot of hindrances, then you are doing some sort of association to another kind of an object, another kind of a mental object. So that rough object being abandoned, but you are now associating a similarly, comparatively refined object. Say, for example, if you recognize that you are doing meditation and right now your attention is drawn to breathing, and currently breathing is somewhat rough. You can recognize little rough breathing. But as we continue, the breathing can become very subtle. And you are keeping your attention carefully with that subtle sensation, subtle breathing. So comparatively, the object has become refined. And so this is how we are progressing. Now maybe it even become further refined. You can't even distinctly recognize whether it is in-breath or out-breath. So it is even refined. So how are we going to continue? So basically that is the progress. So it is quite challenging right now because we might fall asleep or we might shift our attention to something else, or we might start little panicking, that thinking that there won't be enough oxygen to the body, or we might even start doubting about the situation. All sorts of obstacles can happen, but if we are skillful, probably we promote this calming down. So rather than trying to make the experience somewhat gross, so now we are allowing the process to become further calm, further relaxed, further tranquil. So this is the progress. So now it is further refined, further tranquil, and we are simply being there. So the concentration is very, very refined, very sharp. We haven't fallen asleep. And we are just trying to maintain such kind of a concentration, fair awareness, very refined awareness. And this is how we are progressing. Now assume that you are getting to the first absorption, first jhana. And while being in the first jhana, there are probably, one can recognize, okay, there are certain disadvantages, even in the first jhana. Mind has little movements because of the vitakka, the operation of the vitakka promotes some amount of a movement in the mind. And as we are investigating whatever that the mind is established, it is promoting a little bit of agitation in the mind. So there is something that you need to do in a little involved manner. So what are we going to do right now is to get into the second jhana, because there are some obstacles, some disadvantages, limitations in the first jhana. Now we are getting to the second jhana. So now assume that you are in the second jhana, abandoning of the vitakka and vichara, applied mind and the sustained mind. So now those are abandoned, you are simply being in the second jhana. And second jhana is more refined. Concentration is fairly high, well established, and mind's movements are very less. Mind is quite still, and sharp mindfulness is there, and you are well concentrated. And fair amount of peace is there, rapture is there. So your mind get somewhat elated sometimes, and your body feel kind of goosebumps. Maybe time to time kind of waves are happening. So likewise, certain turbulence can happen time to time because of the piti, manifestation of the rapture. Now, that one can recognize as these disadvantages of the second jhana. So you now want to eliminate that and further refine to a next level. So you are attaining the third jhana. Now you can see in this methodology, so we are abandoning one state which is fairly rough, and we are getting our mind to a very refined state. So that is the next level. So every time we understand certain disadvantages of the present state, and we want to come to a very refined state by overcoming that present state. So every time there's a kind of a volition in the mind, which is looking forward. So there's a kind of a hope, there's a kind of a desire, there's a kind of a dynamic momentum. Because you want something more, something refined, more than what you have currently. Idam nissa, idam pajata. You are using the current rough state in order to become more refined state. So when are we going to stop this process? On the other words, when are we going to completely satisfy with the current moment? stop all that fabrication, stop all that volitional activities, stop the whole thing altogether. So that is the theme the Bhattapada Sutta explains here. So as one is overcoming kind of perceptions by attaining to a more refined perception, so it's a kind of a gradual elimination of rough perceptions by being with the more refined perceptions. Now one decides, okay, this process also is somewhat tiresome. Let me stop it totally. Chete manasame papyo, achete manasame seyo. So he understood, okay, volitionally attaining a new refined state and abandoning a rough state is what I have followed so far. But let me stop that altogether. Let me avoid expecting new refined state. Let me let go of the current state so that mind completely stops. Ahancheva kopana chetayang abhisankareyang imacha me sanya nirujjeyum anyacha olarika sanya uppajjeyum. So during this process, what has happened is that I am sort of yearning a new state, and in order to have that, I am letting go of a previous state. So let me stop that. So nacheva chetayati nacha abhisankaroti. So now I am going to stop thinking. Now I am going to stop volitionally doing anything, and I am completely stopping all the fabrications, all sorts of sankhara, all sorts of fabrications, all sorts of preparations. Now I am going to stop. So once you take that radical decision, that is where you are able to slowly calm down further, and you are minimizing the becoming, that desire, the bhavatanha, you are reducing as much as possible. You reduce that becoming process, and there is no anything to cling to. So the upadana is fairly abandoned. So your mind has not interested of becoming a new state, not expecting a new state. Rather, what you want to do is to be completely happy, completely fulfilled, feeling complete in the current state. And now even you are not attached into the current state. Slowly abandoning the current state. Slowly sort of letting go of whatever the perceptions, whatever the thoughts available right now. Not desiring something new. So what is the ultimate result? Ultimate result is that you may touch the nirodha. You may touch the cessation. So na cheva cheteti na abhisankaroti tassa aceteto anabhisankaroto tacheva sanya nujjanti anyaja oladika sanya na uppajjanti. So what happens is that the new perception is not going to arise. Current perception is slowly going to cease. So what happened? So nirodhang pusati. So the mind starts touching the nirodha, touching the cessation. Evaṁ ko pottapada anupubbābi saññā nirodha sampajāna samāpatti hoti. So Buddha mentioned, okay, this is how step by step in an ordered manner that you are abandoning gross perceptions and attaining more refined perception, and ultimately you even abandon that refined perception so that your mind completely calms, completely settles and touches the cessation. So this is what actually Pottapada Sutta explains. So from the time Pottapada that the bhikkhu is thus conscious in a way brought about by himself, within brackets, that is from the time of the first rupture, he goes on from one stage to the next, and from that to the next, until he reaches the summit of consciousness. So here the summit of consciousness, sanyagga, is not just one. Now Buddha first explained the sanyagga as the akinchanyayatana, that is the nothingness. And interestingly, Pottapada asks whether is that the only sanyagga, is that the only summit of consciousness that you declare? Then Buddha say no. wherever you take that radical decision, okay, I'm going to stop all the fabrications. I'm going to stop all these preparations. I'm going to settle here. I'm going to feel complete here. So that is now that state, that particular place where you take that decision can be considered as a sanyaga, can be considered as a summit of consciousness. So that may not be discussed here in this passage, but if you refer Pottapada Sutta, so that discussion is there. So after Buddha's explanation of this attainment of the cessation, so there Pottapada interestingly asked this question, which is very, very important question. And Buddha mentioned that it is not that single summit of consciousness, but there are many such possibilities at many different places. Say, while on the first jhana, you can take that decision. While in the second jhana, you can take decision. So likewise, if you are in the boundless space, you can take that decision. Boundless consciousness, Vijnananchayatana, you can take that decision. And again, in the Akinchanyayatana, nothingness, you can take that decision. So likewise, so here in the Samatha approach, here in the Pottapada Sutta, it is explained. So how one can touch in the cessation. So basically the idea is mind becomes completely relaxed, completely calm, completely stopped, overcoming any sort of wavering, and there are no thinking, there are no conceptual proliferation. So the mind is experiencing inner silence. Mind is experiencing complete stillness of the mind. So where were I to go on thinking and fancying these ideas, these states of consciousness I have reached would pass away, but other coarser ones might arise. And so I will neither think nor fancy anymore. And he does not. And to him neither thinking anymore, nor fancying the ideas, the states of consciousness he had pass away, and no others coarser than them arise. So he touches the state of cessation. Thus is it Pottapada that the mindful attainment of the cessation of perception takes place step by step. The Pottapada Sutta thus vividly portrays how one can step out, as it were, from the ambit of the centripetal forces of Papancha, having gradually forced one's way through to the peripheral layers of the whirling maze of Papancha, where those forces are at their weakest. So it's a kind of a gradual abandoning of the Papancha, and even ultimately cutting off total thinking. So you come to a kind of a stillness of the mind. There are no thinking even. So enjoying the complete quietude. The close relationship between Vitakka and Papancha, as well as the necessity of allaying them, seems to be hinted at the Uraga Sutta of the Sutta Nipata. It is noteworthy that the refrain running throughout this sutta of 17 stanzas emphasizes the fact that a monk has to quit all bounds, both here and hereafter, even as the snake sloughs off its worn-out skin. Now, here in this Uraga Sutta, the theme is that as a kind of a snake, every time to time basically, abandoning the worn-out skin. So he basically abandoning the worn-out skin. So once the worn-out skin is abandoned, so he is having a new form. He is very much like become a new person. Like that. So Buddha gives this simile in order to overcome our defilements, overcome our self-appropriation, some sort of misunderstandings, overcoming various kinds of stresses in the mind, so that you become a refreshed person, rather than carrying the all different kinds of old unnecessary burden in our mind. How about letting it go? How about keeping it aside? So the simile is very, very interesting, like a snake abandoning its worn-out skin without having any kind of an attachment to it. Probably you might have seen how snakes are very much abandoning that worn-out skin. Sometimes You may have seen certain worn out skin that they have kept simply left over. And so that's a kind of a interesting process and very important process. And Buddha takes it as a simile to tell us, to teach us that we have to abandon all that what is unwholesome. So that is the worn out skin. There's a new life possible. There's a new life which is completely released, completely sort of freed. So how about overcoming those layers of defilements, the skin of defilements, so that you get a new purified state of mind? So that's the theme actually highlighted in this Uraga Sutta. In this Uraga Sutta, Venerable Jnananda actually takes up few verses. Now, two of the unwholesome tendencies whose abandonment is recommended in the sutta are vitakka and papancha. They are referred to in two contiguous verses. Yassa vitakka vidhupita ajjattang suvikappita asesa. So bhikkhu jahati oraparang urago jinnamiva tacham puranam. In whom all thoughts which have been concocted within are burnt without residue. That monk quits bounds both here and hereafter, even as the snake its worn out skin. Now, yassa vitakka vidhupita, all different kinds of thoughts, is now simply abandoned. Vidhupita literally means that you are using some sort of a smoke to send someone away. Say, for example, if you want to overcome maybe unnecessary bees or any kind of flies, probably you are using some sort of a smoke so that they may fly away, go away. So similarly, you are abandoning the thoughts in your mind. So here the idea is that you understand, okay, this unnecessary thinking, the overthinking is a kind of a burden. It's a hindrance. So when thoughts are coming, you are simply pushing them away, letting them go without holding them, without attaching to them. And so here Buddha gives the simile, okay, like that snake abandoning the worn out skin, you got to abandon these thoughts. Yassa vitakka vidhupita ajjattang suvikappita asesa. So you are the one actually really fabricated that thinking. We started thinking, we started fabricating it, we started dreaming about it. Now it has sort of grown up. Now you understood, okay, I mean, no point of holding this anymore. It is now harming my mind. It has become a burden to me. Let me abandon that. Now it has become a worn out skin for you. Now you need to let it go. So I think that is enough for today. We'll get into the next verse next week. And with that, I like to conclude today's discussion on this conceptual proliferation related book, Concept and Reality. Now, if you have any question related to today's Dhamma sermon, this book discussion, or regarding your own practice, so now you can start asking. You can participate to the discussion.
Avasarai Bhante, we have 8 questions today.
Right.
So before I begin the questions, I'd just like to mention that there are a few recordings that are not up in the website yet. We are still trying to process them. So just bear with me until I get it over to Bhante to upload. And as always, we are seeking any volunteers who would like to help us run this program as well. So we can get started with the questions. Question number 1 of 8 is mindful sitting. Dear Venerable Sir, during sitting practice, I focus on breathing and I can establish mindfulness after 5 to 10 minutes. I can observe the differences between the in-breath and out-breath and middle, beginning and end of the breath. The breath starts to become subtle during this period and fades away, leaving the awareness spreading into a spacious area. This state feels very calm and tranquil. Even there are some body awareness, sounds and thoughts come and go. There is no disturbance to the calmness and stillness of this state. However, after about 5 minutes, thoughts start pouring in and the attention goes to body posture or back to breath. I try to observe why this is not possible to stay a bit longer in that calm state of mind, which I could not understand yet. Thought of writing this down if Venerable has some advice, and check what is the reason of automatically getting ejected from this calm state of mind. With metta, that's the end of the question.
So maybe now how you attain this calm state is something that you need to recognize. So if you do some sort of vipassana to attain this state, so that generated wisdom is not enough. Say, for example, you are carefully recognizing rising and falling, rising and passing away, very subtle rising and passing away of, say, feelings. Different feelings are there, they are quickly arising and passing away, and you are carefully observing them. And that is the field that you are working on. And the wisdom generated through that process makes the mind uplifted to a place where there is no attachment, there is no object at all. So this is one possibility, which is possible through vipassana. But unfortunately, if you can't maintain that state, that new release state for a while, so that means still that further you need to practice. Whatever the wisdom which was responsible for releasing you from the that somewhat gross process is not yet enough to maintain that release state for a while. Therefore, you need to continue. But as you are continuing your practice, more and more wisdom being growing, and more you become able to stay in that release state for a while. So it will happen gradually. On the other hand, if you are practicing simply anapanasati and say you are simply watching the breath and it has somewhat refined, and then again you are continuing your practice, further it has refined, and ultimately you feel that your mind is completely calm, relaxed, concentrated. So this is actually, we can say, fairly a certain amount of samatha approach. But even there, you might not be able to stay longer if the practice is not enough. Because the hindrances may pop up very quickly. As you said, bumping you back to that old kind of phenomena, kind of hindrances. But anyway, as you are continuing the practice slowly, you will understand how to prolong this somewhat concentrated or calm state. So don't worry, just it's a matter of continuing your practice. So as you are gaining fair amount of experience, you may be able to maintain your mind on that relaxed state further and further.
Question number 2 of 8. This is a Dhamma sermon question. Dear Bhante, much merits for your explanations and insights on the new area of prapancha. While watching the mind, I have started identifying prapancha and being aware of them, and try to observe some attributes and details that Bhante explained. Just for further understanding, at some point, if we try to use prapancha to reflect on the Four Noble Truths, what would be the contemplative method? Much merits for your service. With metta, that's the end of the question.
Yeah, actually, when you are recognizing the Four Noble Truths, so basically, if you followed the Dvaitanupassana Sutta, we just finished on Sunday Dhamma sermons in Sinhala medium and English medium during the Wednesdays on the Sutta teachings. So there are Buddha highlights. Four Noble Truths are the first type of contemplation that one can continue in one's vipassana. Idea is that you recognize some sort of unsatisfactoriness available in your mind, some sort of an agitation available in your mind, some sort of a maybe worry or sorrow available in your mind. So that is the suffering right now you have. So at this moment, if you have recognized such kind of a little unsatisfactoriness, little bit of worrying, little bit of restlessness, so that's a little unsatisfaction, little suffering you have currently. And you can verify what is the exact cause for that. So actually here we are using the Yoniso Manasikara. We can't say this is a prapancha. Rather, we are trying to recognize what is the exact cause for this agitation, for this little unsatisfaction, for this little frustration. Assume that you recognize, okay, this is the exact reason. And now it's a matter of abandoning that cause. Maybe you had a desire, you have a kind of an expectation, but the other party, the other person, the other situation didn't happen as you expected. So that has made you unhappy. So how about abandoning that desire, abandoning that sort of an expectation? So then the mind calms down, relax, and now you are in a more comfortable state, more relaxed state. There is no burden, no thinking. So you are back to the equanimity, back to the calmness. So likewise, it's a matter of recognizing this little unsatisfactoriness, little restlessness, little agitation, whatever the form that is available, in whatever the form that suffering manifests in our mind. So that has to be recognized. So once we recognize that, it's a matter of finding out its causes and then abandoning the causes. Ultimately, the suffering ceases, and you may be able to maintain a relaxed mind, unburdened mind, unattached mind. And even there is no I-making, mind-making on while being in that. And so the mind now has settled and unestablished. So here actually the practice is somewhat deep in the sense that you have come through a fair amount of practice, and there you understand, okay, now I have to streamline my practice based on the Four Noble Truths. Yeah, back to you, Chamila.
Question number 3 of 8. This is also on Dhamma Sermon. Dear Bhante, much merits for the insightful book reading today. To understand the message in Sakkapanna Sutta, is it right to say that there are embedded prapancha sanna sanka in the worldly things and products already, which generates thinking automatically? With metta,
Exactly.
that's the end of the question.
Exactly. What you have understood is very correct. So there is an embedded, hidden potential to think in all the human-made products. So we have made many different manufactured products are there. We design various things, and those could be, the manufactured things, and those could be even, say, even a language. Those could be even a book, a written book. It could be an essay. It could be a kind of a verse. It could be a recitation. It may be a song. It may be a melody. All that can promote thinking. Say, for example, you are simply listening to music, kind of a compose. And while you are listening to music, so you become even emotional. How? Because you start thinking. While you are listening to a particular music, so you can even become somewhat emotional. You might even start crying by listening to that music. And of course, on the other hand, if you are simply listening to a song, it can actually talk about a particular incident has happened, or kind of imagination which has happened, or maybe romance which has happened. So many different themes are there. So you start thinking. So even a song, as obvious, so it starts promoting thinking. So likewise, all the products, it may not be any manufactured products like car or bus or whatever it is. I mean, simply I have taken that example. But there are various very refined objects, very refined products that also actually promotes thinking. So that's a problem. So whatever we create, whatever we prepare, ultimately whatever we sell could be an interesting object to another person, and he start thinking about it, proliferating about it. So we are actually in a kind of a trap. Back to you.
Question number 4 of 8. This is also Dhamma Sermon. Dear Bhante, I have a question regarding getting involved in meritorious activities and how that can affect my own practice. You touched on the subject in the Dhamma talk today as well. For example, I have come to know a few activities or projects in similar monasteries to that of Nissarana, and I am thinking whether I should participate in them or not. I know I can add value and that it will support and help the monastics as well as the lay people. However, I also know that by getting involved, I will lose the tranquility and free life I conduct because it will mean I will have to engage with other people that can get into a lot of complications in coordinating, working with them, etc. I know that my level of practice is not at the point that I can keep my emotions aside and work with anyone with the glad game. So, in the one hand, I want to support these activities for the greater good that will bring. And on the other hand, I know that I will get myself involved in something that will have no limits and be a detriment to myself. How would Bante advise to handle this kind of situation and doubt? Much merits for your guidance with metta. That's the end of the question.
I think you already have the solution. So basically, if you know, so currently I don't have a strong practice where I can get involved, participate in a particular activity, and still maintain the mindfulness, still maintain maybe a release mind. So that's a fairly, a matured state of mind. Even though you are talking to others, even though you are participating, even though you are in a meeting, once that meeting is over, you can quickly calm down yourself, quickly relax yourself, come back to the normal state, come back to the relaxed state. So that is something that we have to develop progressively. But if you understand, okay, still I am not yet there. So if I participate, then I am getting too much involved with it. Then my practice going to be affected. I may lose time so that I won't have enough time to practice. I start thinking too much, get into papancha, get into proliferation. So all sorts of difficulties are there. So then we better avoid it, because you know that the Buddha's teaching is always, okay, first you need to understand your mind, you need to start developing mindfulness and have fair amount of freedom, have fair amount of wisdom, then actually you can help others. And there is actually a very critical simile given by the Buddha. He simply say, if you are drowned in mud, how are you going to help another to get out of mud? So simply, first of all, we need to get out of the mud. Probably then we can help others also to come out. So similarly, so first of all, we need to be fairly experienced, fairly developed, so that we know, okay, I can maintain the balance now. And I'm maybe using the opportunity to sort of test my practice. So that is also another opportunity. So rather than completely being secluded, completely being deprived, so let me engage with the others and see where am I right now. So there is an opportunity for that also. Maybe it will happen in the future. So once you are continuing your practice, then you need to actually go to the society, go to your friends and see where you are right now. Because otherwise we can come to wrong conclusions. So we need to engage with the others and see where we are. Still I am into proliferation, still I am sort of too much involved thinking. So that means further we need to maintain fair amount of practice and say on a one day that you are engaged on such kind of activity and you are in a really relaxed mood, you do your contribution, you participate. After coming back home, still the mind is fairly, say, relaxed. So that means you now can handle most of the situations. So likewise, we have to assess our practice. Accordingly, we have to move forward. Your question is very valid question.
Question number 8 of 5.
8.
Question number 5 of 8. Sorry. Dhammasavan question. Dear Bante, does the third type of neutral feelings arise due to equanimous mind or due to ignorance? Please. I have heard some say the neutral feeling is due to ignorance, but find it confusing as you can have a neutral feeling with an awareness. Example, water. Is neutral feeling same as equanimity? That's the end of the question.
Yeah, actually, so equanimity is the product of wisdom as well. Now, say for example, if you come to a fairly advanced level of vipassana, So there are, probably you have heard about the statement called Sankhar Upekha Jnana, that you have sort of a wisdom to all different kinds of causal phenomena, conditioned phenomena. So there you are now maintaining an equanimity to all different sorts of conditioned phenomena. You have no attachment, no repulsion, but maintaining a very relaxed attitude to all the conditioned phenomena. Now here also we are talking of equanimity, which is completely supported by wisdom. But on the other hand, if we consider typical worldly person who has no hearing of Dhamma, who has no practice at all, so then basically he is ignorant about the equanimous feeling. He feel bored about the equanimous feeling. He even do not notice the equanimous feeling, because that is very much like the water. While, say, a fish, while being in the water, he might not feel the water. But time to time assume that he may meet up with an accident, another fish is coming to take him. So that is the moment that he may start feeling frightened and all that. But how about his being in a kind of equanimity? That is not being noticed because of the ignorance. So therefore, the typical equanimity, the feeling equanimity, a typical unpracticed worldly person is experiencing is fairly based on the ignorant. It promotes even ignorant. But the practitioner, slowly, he starts recognizing the equanimous feeling. So that's why, say, for example, while we are practicing Anapanasati, so that breathing is an equanimous process. So we are opening up ourselves to equanimous process. We are recognizing that equanimous process. Rising and falling is an equanimous process, so we are recognizing that. Simple walking is an equanimous process, we are recognizing that. So we are awakening ourselves to this equanimous process, so equanimity as a feeling. So rather than completely, distracted from the equanimous feeling, now we are well experiencing as well as investigating the equanimous feeling. So that's the turning point in our practice. So previously we are ignorant about the equanimity, but now we are trying to be awakened to the equanimity, even the equanimous feelings, which can ultimately lead to the very higher level of wisdom. Through that wisdom, we are again maintaining the equanimity to all the conditioned phenomena. So there's a different themes that we can talk with respect to equanimity.
Question number 6 of 9. This again Dhammasaman question. With respect to Bhante, please discard this question if it is not worth answering. Is there a way to watch a good movie without getting too much into prapancha? With metta, that's the end of the question.
You can try that, by the way. So there may be, that's why I mentioned, actually Buddha has mentioned, if you find that your mind become relaxed, you are gaining some kind of a, say, motivation for your practice, so you feel encouraged for your practice, and you are spiritually uplifted by going through something, by watching a movie, such kind of a movie, then probably it is useful. Now, say for example, you are a little depressed about the current situation. Suppose that you are always watching the news and always going through the economic crisis and always understand the mishaps of the politicians, always watch the strikes and all that nonsense. So you feel quite disturbed. So why are we watching that? So basically we are promoting a lot of defilements in ourselves. Now, on such situation where you feel really upset, you feel really depressed, how about watching a cartoon or watching a comedy series? You start laughing, you start become joyful. I feel that would be more useful than watching this depressive type of news. Because even for practice, you need certain amount of joy. So without joy, without inner sort of happiness, you can't actually even continue your practice. So therefore, it is a kind of opportunity that we have. So what are we going to select? So therefore, depending on the situation, you need to use whatever the opportunity available. And suppose now that you are in a more relaxed state, you are in a very calm state, and you now even can maintain your practice without much problem, then you don't need to watch a comedy movie either, because it is a kind of a gross type of entertainment. Now you can actually get into a more refined practice using, say, your meditation. So likewise, there also you can use the same principle.
Question number 7 of 9. This is Dhamma 7 question. Dear Bhante, thank you for the insightful discussion today. Much merits for your service. The two explanations given on how embedded prapanja in worldly products produce thinking, and how thinking, as given in Madhupindika Sutta, lead to prapanja. It now comes to a chicken and egg problem, Bhante. Which one comes
Yes.
before the other, prapanja or thinking? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Now we are thinking that, and now we are trying to make papancha. So don't do that also. It's a matter of now practicing yourself and calming down your mind. So we don't need to find out which has come first. No point of wasting our time. Now there are enough strategies to overcome papancha. So you do some walking meditation and relax, calm down, stop basically thinking. So just pay attention to the kind of bodily sensation. So at that moment you find, okay, there is no papancha at all. So therefore, I mean, no point of go to a kind of an extreme level to find out which has started. Whether it has the very first human being, how he started thinking. For his first thought, what is the exact reason? So, I mean, these are all logically one can come up with all different kinds of stories, but useless.
Question number 8 of 9. Bhante, we have 2 more questions and it's about 2 minutes.
Fine.
That's fine.
Fine. You can go through.
Question number 8 of 9. This is a general question. Dear Bhante, is my doubt about the existence of deities in the sky and on the earth, that is Akasha and Bhumi, as described in some suttas, tantamount, I don't know that word, to Vichikicha, skeptical doubt. I refer to the 10 collections, Anusati, number 6, Devanusati, the claim that Arahant can see and communicate with Devas and the supernatural beings by their psychic powers. I cannot accept that humans 2,500 years ago had mental capabilities far greater than present-day humans, despite the mental training and sharpness acquired by sustained meditation. That besides the non-existence of devas. Some claims by present-day fraudsters to have supernatural powers and gifts, I note, can lead to avidya, stupidity, among gullible sections of the population, such as that caused by the Dhammika pannier being promoted and sold in Sri Lanka. Therefore, would it not be better for us to ignore Devanusati and similar dogmatic references to gods and attend the key teachings of Buddha? Theruvan Saranai. That's the end of the question.
Very interesting. So basically, I can't deny telling that, okay, there is no deities, no celestial beings, because it is then against the Dhamma, because there are enough evidences in the canon that Buddha himself is talking to celestial beings, and other monks are also having discussions with them, and even the monks with the psychic powers, they are seeing and having discussions, etc. So those are quite apparent in the suttas. And today also there are maybe those are available, but as you said correctly, maybe even though today still practitioners are there, I don't know how truly that they are able to communicate with these celestial beings. The problem is that we can have a lot of imaginations, as you know, as even when we are practicing, when the object becomes very subtle, various kinds of perceptions can arise. Those are false perceptions. There are gods, there are celestial beings, there are Brahmas, various different kinds of characters can appear as a result of kind of perceptions. They are actually sanya. Basically, sanya Buddha defined as a mirage. That as we are moving forward, when the mind doesn't have enough food to establish, food to eat, food to take, so there it started using kind of a trick, using various kinds of images, which is pre-stored in our mind. That's why Buddha is warning us to be careful, and they are merely mirage, they are not the real things. So therefore, if those are happening, actually the best thing is to discard them, to overcome them, or simply pay your attention to the body, so that those mirage, those kind of perceptions are abandoned. No point of following them. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that we have to deny the complete availability of them. Even though I don't have a capacity to look at them or talk with them, we don't need to deny that totally. There may be people who have that capacity and to deal with them. So this is a little, different area that we ourselves might not have that capacity, but there are people who could do this kind of communication. And as you said correctly, but there are enough people who have that false notions, false kind of perceptions as well. And there are all different kinds of cunning people who are simply telling that they have that capacity and, simply to earn money that is being advertised just to earn money. So those kinds of traps are also there. So the situation is very difficult where to find out a genuine possibility and where the people are simply playing kind of a game, playing kind of a, cheating the others. It's very difficult to recognize.
We got 2 more questions. We got a new one as well. So question number 9 of 10. Dear Bhante, recently I have heard in a different Dhamma sermon that in Satipatthana Sutta, the repeated verse, Vinaya loke abhijja domanasam, can be interpreted as subsiding hindrances. Thus, it is a necessity to follow the path of jhana and samatha practice to start the real insight meditation of Satipatthana. Appreciate Bhante's explanation on this with metta. That's the end of the question.
I feel that, say in the Satipatthana practice, say when you are paying attention to, say, feelings, say painful feelings are there, pleasurable feelings are there. So the obvious possibility is that when pleasurable feelings are there could be an attraction to those pleasurable feelings. When painful feelings are there, there's an obvious possibility of sort of resentment towards them, being little hateful about them. So that kind of possibility is there. But the proper attitude that we need to maintain is the kind of equanimous, balanced attitude that is being highlighted in the Vinaya loke abhijja domanasam. Now, the mind has to be well balanced. So you should not have any kind of preconceived ideas. Mind has to be well balanced. And then only we can say, okay, we are able to have a, very reasonable experiment with whatever the present phenomena. So same thing we can take into the Kayanupassana. Say you are going through certain experiences. Say you are experiencing hardness. And if you have certain dislike towards hardness, and assume that you are experiencing kind of refined, a very soft sensation, probably you may have a certain desire towards that kind of sensation. But both are not the correct attitude one needs to have. Even to hardness, even to softness, you have to have a very balanced kind of a mindset. So therefore, this is very much like a kind of an experiment that we are doing. So the scientist has to have a very, very balanced mindset so that he is having a very reasonable experiment. For us also, as practitioners, while we are engaged with the Vipassana, in the Satipatthana, we have to have a balanced mind, not being driven by attraction, not being driven by any kind of a repulsion. So we have to have a little patience when things are, not the way that we like. Those are not likable. And we should not have any kind of attraction when things are really favorable, very desirable or pleasurable. So therefore, I feel rather than telling that here simply we are preparing ourselves to absorb jhana, rather we are maintaining a mindset, balanced mindset, so that we can recognize the true nature of various kinds of different phenomena in order to develop wisdom, in order to develop insights. So we are clearly comprehending the true nature of various phenomena without having any biases in our mind. So the mind has to be well balanced. So without such a balance, you can't get the real perspective about whatever the phenomena. So that balanced attitude is represented, as far as I can interpret, in the Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanassa. So this my understanding, but I mean anyone can give various kinds of interpretations. But anyway, I promote insight practice, not much to the samatha practice.
Question number 10 of 11. So this question, as the practice continues, less interest is in worldly activities and even socializing. This leads to a disinterest in general social chit-chat and even socializing. Also notices mind not having much to discuss unless related to Dhamma. I guess this too will pass. Any advice going forward? Much merits for your guidance.
This too will pass. That's a difficult question in a way that how that can be passed. So basically, Buddha encouraged this attitude. So if you want to discuss, okay, please discuss about the Dhamma. Otherwise, be quiet. So that is an advice Buddha has given to the monks. So monks, whenever you gathered, so if you want to talk, please discuss on 10 topics. Appicca Kata, Santutti Kata, say Viryarambha Kata, Samadhi Kata, Sila Kata. So likewise, he has given 10 topics. Okay, monks, these are the fruitful topics to discuss. Then you can discuss about these things. Because as you said, that is related to Dhamma. Otherwise, be quiet. Maintain inner silence. So that's the theme actually Buddha promoted. So I think, so this attitude is not a bad thing. But it doesn't mean that you can't move with the others. Say if there is an opportunity that you have to help another person, someone is coming, asking your help, your guidance. So we have to have that kind of a little empathy also. Otherwise, we can become completely lonely and, completely deprived kind of people, very selfish people. Rather, as we are maturing, we have to have a kind of a spacious mind, even to accommodate a bit of trouble coming from the others, so that we can help. Because sometimes we have to be patient. We can't expect others to behave in a perfect manner, but we have to be a little patient. But it doesn't mean that we are every time suffering because of the others. Rather, if it is the possibility that if there's a possibility that I can maintain a bit of patience so that the other party would realize something, then you better help on the other hand. So anyway, as you mentioned, and even a previous occasion we discussed, so we are in a way slowly maturing so that you can bear even a discussion. You can bear someone's chit-chat. You don't need to get too much involved, but you can bear it. Even after hearing it, your mind is not too much talking about it. So that means your mind has become fairly stabilized. So it depends on our practice where we are. But if you feel, as in the previous case we discussed, if you feel that still I myself is vulnerable, I should not get into too much discussions or too much chit-chat with others, then we better avoid it, because the maintenance of our practice is important.
Question number 11 of 11, I think it will be the last question we'll take for today. This mindful sitting. Dear Venerable Bhante, during the meditation, I experienced very sharp pain on top of my head, right hand side. This started about 3 months ago, and I feel this mostly during sitting meditation. I assume this is as a result of my past bad karma, and I don't feel the need to go to a doctor. What is your thought on this? With metta, that's the end of the question.
Now, if we simply decide, okay, this is my past karma, I don't think that's a valid reason, because coming to such a conclusion is very difficult. So if you have never met with a physician, with a doctor, so please go and see a doctor, because that doctor might have various kinds of his professional, say, equipments and all different tests to check you, so that it could be due to some other reason, maybe some health issue. So therefore, we should not attribute everything to the karma, because the possibilities are there to overcome fair amount of pain through the the medicine. So that is there. Even the Buddha has taken medicine. Assume that you have tried all that. Say you have seen many doctors and you tried that, and say all that different possibilities you have tried. Probably still, if it is there could be a relationship with the karma as well. But if you are simply taking a decision, okay, this is because of the karma, I should not even see a doctor, I don't think it's a valid conclusion.
Thank you, Bhante. So
Yeah.
we've gone over time, about 15 minutes, so I think we will end the program for today. So to end the program, I would first like to pass our merits and thank Bhante for his valuable time, even with the busy schedule at the monastery. To all the supporters of this program, both seen and unseen, and to the participants for joining today to practice and sharing their questions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thero Sarnai.
Yeah, Thero Sarnai.
Thero Sarnai.